it's Ysadora back again, and today I'm here to talk to you about another aspect of witchcraft, of course. So this was actually a question that was posed to me on the Pagans and Witches Amino app, which is probably one of the really good best ways to get in contact with me. But I actually then thought that it was actually a really good question to actually answer for everyone else as well. So I was asked about the nature of pendulums, and whether their readings are spiritual in origin or the whole idea motor theory. Now, this idea is that they are based on the body's own subconscious reactions to what we actually want the response to be. And so it's not actually any spiritual origin, but it's actually biased by our own subconscious. So both questions are very, very valid there. The spiritual part also had two components, whether the pendulum was guided by a spirit or whether it was actually the psychic skills of the user. So yeah, it's one of those ones that's actually really complex. It was an incredibly complex question to actually start answering, and luckily there was like even more questions to follow afterwards after I'd gone through that, so I will cover a few more later on as well. So I'll kind of paraphrase my response here just for the sake of like keeping it short and sweet and quite clear. A pendulum, much in the way we use like oracle cards, runes, dividing rods, anything like that, are simply a tool that's used to sort of really utilize and really clarify and magnify our own skills. So we all have some element of innate abilities. People talk about being sensitives and things like that. So each of us have some semblance of being connected in with like a psychic energy or whatever you like to think. And so we use it simply using these tools to create a response, especially one that's actually quite easy to interpret and understand for ourselves. The response comes from our intuition and connection to the metaphysical worlds, so the tool we use clearly delineates that reading that we're getting. Some may utilise spirit guides with their pendulum work. However, the standard use of a pendulum is not actually connected to contacting the dead or other entities. For that reason, it's pretty safe to use, and you can still, you know, get like quite a good response without actually having to contact any entity that may be out there. So in response to the idea motor theory, it's a little harder to refute there. It's something that does tend to get thrown around an awful lot, and it's something that we really do have to take into account. So one may say that it's not true, but then how can you get responses that you deem negative or something that you really, really don't want? You know, how do you get responses that you are totally against? One may then also argue that these negative responses come from a subconscious knowledge of the truth, even if the conscious mind actively denies it. Even if we're in denial about it, our subconscious actually knows what's going on. So regardless of this, whether it is the idea motor theory or whether it is innate abilities, pendulums are still actually used quite effectively. I know many people that do use them. I avoided using them for the longest time and then found out they're actually really, really useful. So the follow-up question was about asking questions with unknown answers, but getting a wrong answer from the pendulum. This was fairly quick to deal with, as it was pretty clear that the asker simply didn't like the answer to the question that they were given by the pendulum, and not enough time had even elapsed to see if it was truly wrong. The person had like asked the pendulum the night before about something and then came talk to me the next day to say that it was wrong. So while it might simply be that they just don't like the answer and the time has not come about for it to actually happen yet, it's one of those things. She specifically specified that it was an unknown answer, so therein lies the problem. A pendulum may also give a not sure or fairly non-committal response. That may mean there must be a choice made in order to influence the actual outcome of what you're asking about, or that what one is asking about is a lot more complicated than just a simple answer that the pendulum can give. So there may be several factors influencing the response. you may not have all the core information to actually ask it a clear enough question, or it may be something that needs to be broken down into a series of smaller questions. As you utilize a pendulum more and more, you'll begin to see like the small nuances in movement, and that will really start to understand and start to give you a few extra hints about what you maybe need to do next. If you are getting a non-committal response, then you probably need to look at rephrasing questions, possibly asking greater questions. It really depends. We have to remember that with life, it's not exactly, nothing is ever really a totally yes or no answer unless it's something very, very clear and specific. There's often many different factors influencing any kind of question in that way. So thank you for giving me a bit of time about pendulums. I will be back later on to actually give you a bit of a run through of how to use a pendulum and how to start out. But that is all I have for you right now. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned because, as I said, there will be more. And if you need to contact me, ask me a question, or check out my website, the details will be below. It is www.3mergner.com. We are actually running a really great thing at the moment where we're raising money for an amazing local rescue called Perth Rescue Angels. And so if you do visit the website, maybe pop over and see if you can't pop like a bracelet on your order to help raise money for these amazing people over at Perth Rescue Angels. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.